Welcome to the Space Dreamers podcast, a Sumadre production.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Lift off and the clock has started.
Roger, 0J, and I feel fine. Roger, 0J, and I feel fine.
Oh, that was the one thing I noticed about Rama. Was it like I sound? Like, because we did it without headphones and stuff. So like I sound like really loud.
Mm-hmm.
And like you barely hear Mallory.
Yeah.
She's like this little voice in the background.
Right. That's okay. Okay, welcome to the Space Dreamers podcast. We are here for another episode where we are discussing a novel by Arthur C. Clarke, which is the whole point of this podcast, if you can believe it. After the last month or so of content, it's been pretty much not novels, but here we go. We're talking about Clarke's 13th novel. This is Imperial Earth, which was released in 1976, and it's a pretty long one. It's pretty epic, kind of. Not epic the way 2001 is, but
It's an epic story.
yeah, I really appreciated. Especially, I found myself most engaged in this novel in the beginning, like the whole explanation of why they're clones, and like that whole, his whole family history. I feel like was a lot more interesting than gallivanting around Earth and learning about the Declaration of Independence.
Right.
So I'm here.
Did you say the novel name?
Imperial Earth.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I said it, but we're talking about Imperial Earth.
I love the title too, by the way.
You do?
Yeah. It's funny because like when like prior to reading it, I was just like, huh, what is that? But then like when you read it, it's very Earth centric.
Yeah, I feel like most novels, especially by Clarke, and if you just think about it, it makes sense that if we did expand, Earth would be the central hub, I guess.
Yeah, it still would be no matter what.
And so honestly, let's get into that real quick because that's one thing I couldn't help thinking. And even though I don't love this novel, I barely remembered it. Like,
oh, yeah.
I mean, I remembered what it was about, but
right.
I really didn't remember much. But what I do appreciate, obviously, with all Clarke novels is that they make you think in a way maybe you haven't thought before. So I totally understand the whole idea of whatever you're used to is going to feel like home, no matter what that might be.
Yeah.
And you can experience that even on Earth. When you go to another country,
right?
You're like, this is so alien to me, but for these people, it's all they know, so it's home. But having said that, even though there are generations living on Titan or the other planets, I don't care how much that feels like home. And I understand the whole gravity thing, but as a human being that has certain needs biologically, when you go to Earth, why the fuck would you ever leave? I would be like, I'm staying here.
Yeah.
You got the oceans, you got grass, you have life, you have oxygen. Like, just while I was reading it, all the things that he experienced, especially things like involving nature, like imagine we live on Earth, and when you're up high and you look at the ocean, it's like amazing.
Yeah.
Can you imagine water is like a precious resource to you? Well, it is to some people here on Earth, which is sad, but like the plethora of things on Earth, even if you're from Titan and that's all you know, I just can't imagine feeling alien from Earth if you're a human.
Yeah.
It's just so weird.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I can understand it, especially because so much fear is involved for the character.
Right.
Like the ocean scares him a lot.
Yeah.
The animals scare him a lot. So, but I agree with you. How could you not be just amazed at the freedom,
Right.
that you experience. I couldn't imagine wanting to leave.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm saying is like I found myself when he described, even though I live on Earth, and I don't live in a city. I live in a place where like nature is all around. I found myself when he described Earth being like, "That's amazing.
Yeah,
that sounds so much better than where you're from." But
Yeah.
it's like that's where I'm from.
right,
Right. Whereas normally you read about like some other country, like somewhere in Europe or some tropical country where there's like beaches or whatever and
Yeah.
it's beautiful weather, you're like, that sounds amazing.
Yeah,
And you think about your own home, like,
yeah.
But no, dude. I don't want to live on Titan.
No.
Anyway, so actually, before we get into it, can I tell you about a video game that I'm playing?
Yeah.
Okay, because it's science fiction and it's really, really good. Okay,
Yeah.
so I buy a lot of indie games because of my attempt to interview indie game developers. I'm constantly consuming them, and every once in a while I play one where I'm like, holy shit, like this
Yeah.
one would be amazing regardless of what I was trying to do.
Right.
So it's relatively new too. It came out this year. It's called Golf Club Wasteland. Okay.
What a weird name.
Yeah. So I don't like golf games. I don't really like sports games.
Yeah.
But visually, like I didn't watch the trailer. I just saw the screenshots. It's like this neon, futuristic looking kind of, but it's a wasteland, like it says. So things are like broken down. You're like, but there's like a dark blues and pinks, and
Nice.
it just looks really nice.
Right.
And it looks like cartoony. Like I'm not trying to play a realistic golf game.
Right.
So you jump in, and obviously by the screenshots, it's like you're playing golf in a post-apocalyptic Earth. So there's like broken down highways and half like destroyed buildings.
Yeah.
But then I get in the game, and the story is that there was an ecological disaster on Earth. Everyone left, and now everyone lives on Mars. And so the super rich now go to Earth to play golf.
No.
So it's like a destroyed, but still, it's almost like this, like not paradise, but like, what's the word I'm looking for? Where something's like not like from where you're from, exotic.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like an exotic place to go play golf in.
Weird.
And so you're playing golf like and it's 2D.
Yeah.
So it's not 3D, it's 2D. So you just so you're like this frumpy dude who kind of looks like old golf guys are
Yeah.
in a spacesuit, and you have your golf club, and it's just like when you hit the ball, you like hit it over obstacles, and then he has a little jetpack. So he just like
No.
automatically just like jetpacks over the ruins to get to his ball. So I just love everything comes together to have like this legit atmosphere. And like when you miss a shot, he doesn't care that he's among the ruins of Earth. He's just like, oh, like I missed a shot. And
Who came up with this?
dude,
It's so wild.
some people, I don't know who they are, but
Wow.
what also really makes it awesome
Yeah.
is a lot of games have like really good soundtracks, right? You'll have just really good music that fits the visuals. But in this one, basically he's listening to a radio station on Mars. Like,
Oh.
so it's not just music. It's like music that sounds like it was made for the game, because it's about what you're doing, and it's
Yeah.
about this world that they describe you're in.
Yeah.
And then there's like a radio commentator who comes in and they talk about the song that just played. Like one of the songs is called like Two Astronauts, and it's just like it just takes place in the world that you're in this futuristic world. And then there's like advertisements. It's just really, really, really cool.
Wow.
And it just puts you in this awesome sci-fi world that like
Yeah.
totally works. It's very tongue in cheek. Like there are buildings in the background, like then there's like a neon sign that says YOLO. So it's like clearly like it's a world where we just let everything go to shit.
Wow.
It's really, really cool.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah, I love it. And I think the golfing mechanics, like I'm like 10 levels in out of 35, and I have not mastered the golfing mechanics. I don't think that they are ideal. It's the atmosphere and the story and the visuals that like suck me right in.
Right.
And like, I don't care if I never get a hang of the golf. Like, I want to see every level.
Every level, yeah.
And I want to hear everything that radio commentator has to say about this crazy world that they invented.
That's wild.
It's very cool. So
it's funny because you're talking about the concept of Earth as a wasteland. And I feel like that's something that comes up very, very often, almost always in futuristic dystopian things.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting that in this novel, Earth is like returning to its splendor because we've figured it out.
Right.
And how a lot of things have moved underground so that the earth above can become natural again.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was really interesting, like celebrating Earth as wonderful and beautiful, and we need to preserve it. It's just not usually, I mean, I guess I should expect it from Clarke,
Right.
but it's not usually how. There's usually a more
Clarke loves Utopia.
yeah, I know. There's usually a more depressing outlook when it comes to futuristic Earth.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciated that point of view.
Yeah, he does mention the times of trouble.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure we're headed there.
Yeah.
And hopefully on the other side of it, we
Right.
go to in the opposite direction we're going now.
Right, which is the history that he explains.
Right.
Yeah.
That is interesting that everyone goes underground. It's like the like what we do now is morph nature into what we need it to be.
Right.
Whereas it seems like in his imagined future, we morph by going underground,
Right.
in order to do what is best for nature.
Yeah.
Or for the natural world on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, going underground is pretty selfless.
Yeah. And that's weird, too. It's like they live kind of the way he lives on Titan. I think they mentioned that, too.
Right, right.
You know?
Yeah, so that is kind of interesting because you could say, you know, what we were talking about before, like, you have all this, like, freedom to be outside and enjoy the beauty of Earth and, you know, all this stuff. But if you're still living underground, it's kind of what he does on Titan anyway.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't really think about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're also going to talk about a movie, which weirdly enough is so relevant to this book. You know?
Really? I'm going to have to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, it's about infertility in space.
Oh, yeah.
I asked you, I was like, why are they infertile? Because of radiation in space? And you said, yeah, that seems to be the reason. And that's exactly
Right.
why he's going to Earth, to make a clone, because he's infertile. Because he flew through
yeah,
space.
that's right. I keep forgetting that. Yeah.
So...
Well, he's not infertile. He's just like his genes are damaged. They can't produce healthy offspring.
Okay, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the plot of this book. So, your main character Duncan lives
You don't like that name?
No, it's a stupid name.
I didn't mind it.
It just sounds like a Duncan, like a 12-year-old kid who plays baseball would be named Duncan, not an interplanetary ambassador.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay. So Duncan is the third clone, or the second clone.
Yes.
Of. I feel like I read it so long ago. What was the reasoning?
Okay. Malcolm.
Because Malcolm was like a political genius, right? Didn't he figure some shit out?
Yes. It's described as he was the right man at the right time. He began the colonization of Titan,
which is a moon of Saturn.
right? because he was able to figure out the best way to harness the, what was it? Is it hydrogen?
I believe so, which is a fuel to get around the solar system.
Yes. So, yeah, so he pioneered Titan, essentially. And then he married a woman and had a baby.
Right.
Who was this like gorgeous, wonderful, beautiful little girl, but unfortunately she was developmentally challenged and passed away very soon.
Yes.
So he got himself checked out and found out that he had some kind of genetic abnormality that if he continued to try to have offspring, they would all turn out the same way. They would never survive.
Mm-hmm.
So his marriage falls apart. What's the woman? Is it Emma?
Ellen? Grandma Ellen?
Grandma Ellen. So Malcolm goes to Earth and clones himself. And that's Colin.
Right.
So he comes back with Colin.
But isn't there like a reason for that? I can't remember. Is it just because he wants a kid or he literally wants succession?
Succession.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically about keeping like Titan under wraps.
In the family.
Yeah. Like,
which is weird because it's like they're celebrating America's independence from a kingdom, from kings.
Right.
When, I mean, they do bring it up in the book.
Right.
How it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think they figured out a way to make, because there are other people involved in like the government or ruling or whatever you want to call it of Titan. It's kind of like a communal thing. But the Mackenzies, Malcolm, Colin, and Duncan, because Duncan is
the newest
Colin's
clone. Right.
Yeah, they all kind of like, the three of them handle like all the important decisions on Titan. I mean, they include other people.
Right.
Like the colony as a whole.
They're basically kings.
Right. And it's funny because we're just expected to assume that they're just wonderful, benevolent kings.
Mm-hmm.
But
what I found very interesting in the beginning that they have like a challenger, right? There are people on Titan who are not really necessarily okay with this continuous Mackenzie line of rulers, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which I thought would play more of a role, but then, I mean, towards the end, it kind of just becomes about, science and like discovering aliens or whatever. Right.
Except for the very, very last sentence.
Which I have questions about. I didn't fully. I figured he wouldn't do what he was supposed to do, but I don't fully understand what he did.
So,
did he clone somebody else?
Yes.
Did he clone Carl?
He cloned Carl.
Okay.
So that's the thing. So Duncan's like very best friend / lover,
but also love rival.
Yes, love rival. Yeah, I mean, Carl's a lot of things for him.
And it would have been nice if he was more of a character within the book, and we spent a little more time with Carl and a little less time with Charlie the horse.
Agreed.
That's what I think about that book.
Agreed.
Everything interesting is in the first like 70 pages and the last like 100 to 70.
Yes,
maybe even
there
less.
There are a couple little things in the middle that I really enjoyed, but yeah, definitely I think the beginning and that's the thing is buried underneath all of the Earth exploration bullshit is a really interesting and touching human story
with Carl and Kalindi.
Yeah, well, yeah, all of the people. All of the people in the book. I mean, even Malcolm, even Colin, even, Carl's father, like everyone involved. The people are what make this story really interesting to me. And I find that fascinating because we've often criticized Clarke for his lack of, good human storytelling.
Right.
And I really think that
I still think it's criticizable in this book.
Oh, 100%. But I think, like, as an inclusion, it was really good. It was a really good combination between the science and science fiction and the human storytelling element.
I'm also starting to realize that I don't like this whole stranger in a strange land approach to science fiction.
Yeah.
Especially if the strange land is what I know.
Right.
Even though it's in the future, it's like
Right.
Like the whole I made this connection this morning, like the movie Thor.
Yep.
How he's on Earth.
Right.
Like a fish, the fish out of water story is like if the water is where I live and what I know, then fish out of water stories are boring.
Exactly.
For me.
Yeah. Except for in that movie, my favorite part of that movie is when he goes into the pet store and he asks for a horse. I'm sorry, it's hysterical.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you.
Why are there horses in fucking Asgard, which is in like another realm?
Well, I know we could have entire conversations about it. Yeah. But it's another realm. It's like an outer space planet, but yet it's set back in like Viking time. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
So, but I totally agree with you. I think that it's novel, you know, like when I was reading this, I was like, oh, chuckle about some of the things, but I completely agree with you. It's not that interesting.
Yeah, and I'd be curious, like I kind of want to read the OG Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert A. Heinlein, which is about a dude who's born on the moon and goes to Earth for the first time.
Right.
But I'm sure that'd be boring too.
So I had never, now thinking about it, I've never read anything like this from an outsider's perspective, exploring Earth like an alien planet.
Right.
And so, yeah, while there was some novelty there.
It's more interesting. I will say it is much more interesting when the character is from Earth, but from a different time period. Because then they have points of reference, you know?
Oh, right.
Like Demolition Man. That movie Demolition Man has Wesley Snipes as a criminal from the past.
Yeah.
And he wakes up in the future. And he's like, I'm going to be a criminal here. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to be a badass, but he has to, like, deal with how everything's different.
Different, yeah.
You know, like, he knows what Earth was like, whatever it is, like 100 years ago.
Right.
And, like, dude, that movie's not good, in my opinion. But there's a part where he goes up to, like, a telephone booth, like a futuristic telephone booth, and he's talking to an AI.
Yeah.
And he keeps swearing. And every time he says a swear at the telephone booth, he's like, you have been ticketed for swearing. Oh, and he's like, what the fuck? And it's just like another ticket for swearing. He's so funny, dude.
That's awesome.
But
yeah, you're right. Because like in Terminator, when they come from the future and they have to like figure out like what weapons to use in order to, you know, like that. Yeah. That's interesting. I totally agree with the time difference concept. Yeah.
So then what happens?
God, where were we?
I don't know.
We're talking plot?
Yeah, like the whole cloning thing.
Yeah, okay. So the cloning thing is literally for continuing their bloodline, essentially. Although I did think about it. I wonder if you know, like I wonder if there's any issues with cloning a clone.
We'll find out eventually, I'm sure.
But then I was also thinking about it. Remember at the end too, where he talks about there were other like embryos left. So I wonder if like Duncan really is an exact clone of Malcolm.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, you don't
like
know.
In Jurassic Park, how it's like, yeah, that's a velociraptor, but it's got frog DNA in it.
Right.
So who knows? You
know, it's like you just wonder if you keep watering down, if anything.
I'm sure it's just like inbreeding.
Yeah, like I can't imagine that it would work out well if you were like 20 clones down the line if you kept cloning a clone.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got all these clone questions now.
But then maybe it wouldn't matter because don't you have genes in you from like long time ago and you could just like access those even though
Yeah, maybe.
you are like a new physical embodiment of those genes.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't think I've put much thought into even like the
Dude,
science behind cloning.
nature's so amazing.
Yeah.
Like that nature has in place this thing where it's like, don't make babies with your family.
Yeah.
Like, because we're going to fuck you up.
Yeah.
Like, spread that shit around, you know?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Like that you can't do that.
No, you can't. And
Even though like it's like one of those, it's probably in our minds, like deep rooted in our minds because of the fact that we physically can't do it.
Right.
You know, but it's one of those things where it's like, you don't do that with your family. Like, you're not
Right.
romantically involved with your family, or you shouldn't be.
Right.
And it's like, is it because it
Yeah.
leads to deformation?
Right.
Or is it the other way around?
Yeah,
you
I don't
It's
know.
interesting.
I mean, there's got to be some kind of fail-safe there. That is a good question, though. It's like, do we just know it's wrong because we know it's wrong? Or you shouldn't do it?
Is it
or
icky because of society?
Yeah.
Or is it deep rooted?
Yeah, do
the
we
way
intrinsically
like
know?
an instinct
Yeah, I don't know.
that it leads to?
I bet there's entire sciences behind
I'm
that.
sure there are.
Yeah. It's interesting.
So let's get to. So then Duncan has to go to Earth. I remember that the whole thing is that it's intriguing in the beginning because he goes to Earth to celebrate America's quincentennial.
Yeah.
But he realizes that the real benefit to doing that is whoever rules Titan needs to have a good relationship with Mother Earth.
Yes.
So he says, okay, we're good because we're in power technically right now.
Right.
But what will cement our power is if you go to Earth, make an appearance, literally in person,
Yeah.
and clone yourself,
Right.
and come back.
Yeah. And
so
the best
I like
thing
the
is
dual reasoning.
exactly. And the other thing is that the quincentennial is an opportunity because his entire trip is being paid for
Right.
by the hosts of the gathering.
Right.
Yeah. So they're just like, this is perfect. You have to go.
Yeah. And I found that scene where he goes to the worm. Remember? The worm in the...
Oh, yeah. They call it a worm, but it's not really living.
Right. No.
Yeah,
it's like
it's
a
like a-
thing from the... Well,
Yeah,
I don't
that
even know what it is. But
Yeah, I know.
I found it cool, but also confusing.
Agreed. Totally agreed. It was nothing I could like really picture.
Yeah.
I had a hard time with that.
It was like some kind of thing that came out of the ground of Titan.
Yeah.
It was some kind of like different composition of
Yeah.
like the minerals or something. So it formed like a tunnel. I don't even know how to explain it.
Yeah, and then wasn't there something about like a precipice and like
Well, yeah,
it,
but
like fell.
but then he got that was cool because he was up on like a mountain
Yeah.
and looking out over a cliff, and it was so high that there were clouds, like he couldn't
Oh,
see the
yeah.
ground. There were clouds.
Yeah.
I mean that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
That's like his,
interesting.
but then we're not even talking about the mentor. So the ship comes to Titan when Duncan's a kid, and he has his friend Carl, and the mentor has on a bunch of kids. It's like it's like an intergalactic
Right.
or interplanetary boarding school, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
So that comes to Titan, and there's some kind of mechanical issue, so the kids are stuck there for a while.
Yeah.
They're supposed to just mingle, but they end up like living there for like
Right.
months
Yeah,
or maybe
yeah.
a year or something.
Yeah. And I remember they make a big deal, weren't they? Carl and Kalindi are 21, and Duncan's like 15 because he's younger than Carl.
I don't remember that, but
Yeah.
So they made a girl who was on that ship,
Yeah.
and her name is Kalindi.
Yeah. It's like her nickname.
Yeah, which I remember thinking that was weird. Like, how would you stop? How would you stop kids of that age from having sex and potentially getting pregnant? Like, imagine if a Titanian person got a girl pregnant and then she's like, "I gotta go back to Earth." Like, would that be a fucked up baby?
No.
No.
I think the concerns about like where people live and stuff is like it's remember they talk about it like it's
Yeah, but humans on Titan can't handle the Earth gravity.
right, but since Kalindi was from Earth, if like Kalindi had gotten pregnant and then returned to Earth, it would have been fine.
Because the baby would have grown up in her womb on Earth. Okay,
right,
okay,
exactly.
okay.
So it's like, but if she had stayed on Titan, no, but see, even that would have been
Like, what
fine
if the
because it's
baby
like up to a certain age.
What if the baby was born on Titan and then like it developed entirely in that gravity? Would it be?
Yeah, no, I think it'd be fine because that's what happened to Duncan and Colin.
Yeah, but that's fiction. I mean, so is what I'm saying, but I'm just
yeah, I don't know because I think that would be like a nature versus nurture situation where like you're.
Sounds like all nature. I'm talking about a baby in a womb and how it forms.
No. Nature would be like genetics, and nurture would be where you are.
I guess.
I don't think the womb would matter so much.
Yeah, but
because technically, I
guess,
know there's gravity.
Maybe it's floating.
Yeah, like that's the thing is that I know that you would be under, your.
The baby isn't using its muscles in the womb,
right?
Okay,
so
okay.
I think it would just when the baby's born,
Got
like
it.
how, but
learning to walk and whatnot, because you're
Right,
carried
but
around
even-
as a baby when you're born anyway.
yeah, I think so. I think development is okay. I think really what they talked about was, what was talked about more was like you're good up until a certain age, because even Duncan was born on Earth, but as an infant was taken to Titan, lived on Titan for 30 years
Right.
before returning to Earth, but he was able to do it.
Right.
So I think it just
I was thinking about it in like a sci-fi level, but even like a social level, like
Yeah.
imagine trying to control those kids. It's like, all right, you're supposed to be here for a week, but like just don't
Yeah.
fraternize over there. Like,
Yeah.
please don't. I feel like it'd be
Oh,
so
I
hard to
know.
control like a bunch of kids like on a planet.
I couldn't imagine, but they're like teenagers to college age, I think, which is even worse.
They be getting into all kinds of shit.
Oh yeah, well,
They be doing drugs.
They were doing. She was having a relationship with Carl.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I just feel like, not that it matters. I just find it interesting. Like,
Oh, yeah.
imagine having to control a bunch of kids in space.
Oh yeah, it'd be crazy. I'm actually surprised that no one's like made a film about something like this. Although actually, I did watch that movie. What was that movie called?
Voyagers or
Yeah,
something?
which is kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, so there's like that little love triangle. So like Kalindi comes and like, Duncan is like a little bit like Duncan's a little too young for her. Plus like Kalindi and Carl are like the same age. But it's a little weird because Carl and Duncan are intimate with one another.
right.
And then here comes Kalindi and they both kind of fall for her. But really, and I think she's very tender and nurturing, like with Duncan, but Duncan's not, like, he's not her peer, Carl is. So they end up in like a relationship, more or less, I think is what I got from it. And so Duncan's kind of like the third wheel.
Right.
And then,
So that's like double jealousy because he wants both of them.
right. Right. And then, so that very much like shapes him as a kid. And
You can almost say he's like the third wheel in the clone situation too.
yeah, definitely.
Oh, okay, right. Like when the music starts.
No, when the beat kicks in.
Right, that's
when the
true.
beat drops.
So I'm not recording. You're not recording right now, right?
Just you're intimately involved with the podcast, so tell the folks when the beat drops why they should listen.
Are you ever at home and you're by yourself and you just want to feel something?
Feel it.
You want to hear something.
Hear it.
You want to listen to something that has some wholesome, good words to say. Conversation. Dreamer Nation. Space Dreamers. Listen to this podcast. Yeah, you should bring that back. We should actually write something down and like so that it sounds good, because like this is actually like a really
So then Kalindi goes back to Earth,
Yeah, she goes home.
and Carl and Duncan remain friends, right? But kind of estranged.
Yeah, but remember, then Carl has the breakdown, which doesn't get
Oh, right.
explained until later.
Right, right.
But he has the breakdown, so their relationship kind of falls apart a little
Right.
bit. I think because of the strain on the relationship, friendship, because of Kalindi, and then also because he has a little breakdown. Plus, he's older, so he was off doing things when, and also Carl has a lot of freedom. Duncan doesn't have a lot of freedom,
Right.
Because Duncan is
A fucking prince.
yeah, he's been created to kind of do like one thing.
Isn't it? Forgive me for saying this, but like even progressive Clarke, it's like the woman who fucks it up, who fucks up the plans of the man, Yeah. It's crazy. But maybe that's just, I don't know, the power women have over men or whatever you're into over you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Because I actually kind of really like Kalindi. I think she's a good female character.
I don't know about that whole Enigma Associates thing. Seems like some weird shit that she's into.
No, I think it's fine. I think it's cool. I think the Enigma idea is neat. You know what it reminded me of was the game. Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. Yep.
Except that it's, well, now they said that some of them you don't know that it's happening to you. It depends on the person.
Right.
Yeah, it made me want to watch that movie really badly.
Yeah, so then let's get to the good shit. So then he goes to the journey to Earth was really good.
Yes.
And
really
there's like
interesting.
one or two passages I want to read from it because I remember we talked about this already. But so there are these two scientists who are on the ship with Duncan. It's a 20-day voyage to Earth from the moon, Titan of Saturn. And there's these two scientists whose whole life is about studying Saturn.
And he's like bunking with one of them. So that's how he kind of knows them.
Yeah, so there's one moment where the whole ship has this perfect view of Saturn.
Yeah, I loved reading that stuff. It was really neat.
Really cool. And like obviously Clarke just goes into all his beautiful, epic, poetic descriptions of things that are real out in space. And so this part's pretty good. He says,
The experience brought home to him, as nothing else had yet done, the sheer immensity of space. The solar system, he began to suspect, was not designed for the convenience of man, and that presumptuous creature's attempt to use it for his own advantage would often be foiled by laws beyond his control. All his life, Duncan had assumed without question that he could speak to friends or family instantly, wherever he might be. Yet now, before he'd even passed Saturn's outer moons, that power had been taken from him. For the next 20 days, he would share a lonely, isolated bubble of humanity, able to interact with his fellow passengers, but cut off from all real contact with the rest of mankind. His self-pity lasted only a few moments. There was also an exhilaration, even a freedom, in the sense of isolation, and in the knowledge that he was setting forth on one of the longest and swiftest voyages that any man could make. Travel to the outer planets was routine and uneventful, but it was also rare, and only a very small fraction of the human race would ever experience it. Duncan remembered a favorite Terran phrase of Malcolm's, usually employed in a different context, but sound advice for every occasion. When it's inevitable, relax and enjoy it. He would do his best to enjoy this voyage.
which echoes probably one of my favorite parts of 2001 was that part where those two guys and one computer literally cut off from everyone else, and they feel kinship to an asteroid.
Right.
Because it's the only other solid object for like billions of kilometers.
Yeah, that is a beautiful paragraph that you just read.
I agree.
There was actually a lot of talk in this novel about the concepts of communications and things like that. And I feel like where we are right now, it'd be even worse for us to pull ourselves away. Because if we had instant communication, you know, via telephone and talking to people, now we have even more instant communication with, you know, FaceTime and emails and, you know, social media and texting. Could you imagine having to now, how we're so reliant on instant communication, more so than we ever were before, traveling off across the solar system, how would we as a species deal with that?
I mean, I think Clarke nails it on the head.
Yeah.
He I think he had the foresight, and that's
Right.
what I want to get to.
Yeah.
Is the two scientists. These two scientists who both study Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
They have like differing opinions about the rings, I believe it is.
Yeah.
So they're arguing. And the point Clarke makes, which is exactly real life now, he knew what was coming. He says,
At that moment, it became rather like the shootout in an old-time Western movie. The two scientists reached simultaneously for their hip computers and then retreated, muttering equations, to the back of the lounge. Thereafter, they completely ignored the real Saturn they had come so far to study, and which, in all probability, they would never see again.
so the thing that they came to see strikes up an argument where then they are instantly sucked into their smartphones.
Exactly.
And they're ignoring the actual thing that's right in front of them.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, and dude, the thing about it is, and why it's so prophetic, is because we're all guilty of it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I commend the person who goes on vacation and doesn't bring their phone.
Right.
You know, it's like when I went to the bridge over the River Kwai, okay, which is in Thailand, and there were fucking monks taking selfies there. I'm not kidding, dude.
Yeah.
I have a picture that I took from the ground up at, no disrespect to the monks, dude, but up at the
Right.
up at the bridge itself, and it's like there's a monk on the edge, like holding a phone.
Yeah.
Like we're all guilty
Yeah.
of it, no matter what. Whether a scientist, person on vacation, like I don't know, man. Like I like good pictures, so I always reach for my phone to take dope pictures. But
Right.
you forget, like,
Well, it's like
the-
people who record video of a concert that they're at.
I do that. That's the thing. I've done it.
Yeah. It's like, what the heck?
And it's like weird. It's like, what are you just trying to prove you were there, or do you want to remember it?
Yeah.
On the one thing, it's cool to remember it. Like it's cool for me to go back and watch some of those videos.
Right.
But at the same time, I often find that I think pictures, replace memories. The picture becomes
Yeah.
your only frame of reference.
Yep.
Because like I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I feel like my most vivid memories of like cool shit that happened with things that I didn't take a picture of.
Yeah, you're really right.
Stories that I have to tell, I don't have pictures of because I think the pictures replace the memories.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think of like the most amazing picture I ever took in Peru was like up on this mountain and like there was a curving dirt road and there was a river and there was mountains and everything was green and I was in the fucking Amazon jungle, dude. And like I have little snapshots in my mind of like being there, but what I always think of is that picture that I took.
Yeah.
You know?
You're totally right.
So Clarke got that for sure.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple other things like when he got on Earth and they're talking about like, well, no, I mean even just like the consoles. There was definitely some other like prophetic like advanced technologies. There was one thing that I thought was really interesting was when he basically he's predicting how like companies can track your activity online. You know how like there's that creepy
Yes,
thing.
I do remember.
Yeah, and there's that creepy concept where like you can be having a conversation with somebody next to you, and then all of a sudden you see what you were talking about in your Instagram feed or whatever.
Yeah.
And like that happened to him. He was like he went and like looked. Duncan was like looking. Weren't they like rugs, like Oriental rugs or
Yeah.
something? And the next thing he knows, like he's getting a call from someone on his console, and he's like, "I thought
Yeah.
this stuff was private."
Yeah, that's what he says that. I thought it was private.
Yeah, it was so bizarre. I was like, dude, this is exactly what happthis.
It really is.
Capitalism and commerce will find a way no matter what.
I do like this, how he gets into just to the idea of, regardless of all the sci-fi, like assuming things about people. The one of the doctors says, "We don't get many visitors from Titan," said the medical officer who checked his record. "You come in the lunar classifications. Less than a quarter G. It may be tough down there for the first week, but you're young enough to adapt. It helps if both your parents were born ... The doctor's voice trailed off into silence. He had come to the entry marked mother. Duncan was used to the reaction, and it had long ago ceased to bother him. Indeed, he now derived a certain amusement from the surprise that discovery of his status usually produced. So it's like, imagine that in the future, be like, who are your parents? I only have one. You know?
Yeah, I thought that was really, that brings up a point that I really like that about this futuristic world, that, cloning is obviously an option, but not everybody does it. So it's like,
he does talk about population control too.
Yes, he does. So it's just interesting because it's like, it's still sort of like an anomaly to be, like Duncan's different.
I would assume it's got to be expensive.
Yeah, it must
to get
be.
Cloned.
But I don't know though. That's the thing is that was one thing that I didn't quite understand is that, Malcolm was, pioneering, like the hydrogen stuff. I mean, it had to have made a lot of money, right? Maybe the idea is that the money just goes back into Titan, but they're always talking about how strapped they are.
Yeah, I didn't find that interesting.
Yeah, and I also didn't understand it. I figured they would have had plenty of money. And the fact that like they had, in order for him to go back to Earth, like they saw it as an opportunity because it'd be paid for.
Yeah, I don't
know. But I'm like, you guys are like Titans of Titan,
Yeah.
So it's just, I've always thought that was weird. So I'm wondering if cloning isn't that expensive. I don't know. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, I don't either. But wait.
But I really liked that whole thing where the whole journey. I mean, the what was the name of the ship? Sirius. And then how they had to like stop at like the like entryway or whatever. Wasn't like a space station?
Yeah, to acclimate.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's cool too. Another connection to the movie we watched, how obviously I'm watching that movie. I'm like, what? This dude's walking around in space. Like, what are you doing with this Earth gravity here? Please explain this.
Yeah, you're
and
right.
then they do explain it.
Yeah.
It's because of the acceleration.
Right.
And that's exactly how Sirius works.
Yeah, exactly.
At the
totally
exact
right.
midpoint when they have to start braking, they get weightlessness.
Yeah.
And there's nothing they can do about it because that's more realistic.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So let's talk about Clarke literally describing touchscreens and smartphones.
Oh, yeah.
The SEC, which is short for mini SEC, which is like iPhone, you call it a phone. Smartphone, you call it a phone. The SEC was the standard size of all such units, determined by what could fit comfortably in the normal human hand. At a quick glance, it did not differ greatly from one of the small electronic calculators that had started coming into general use in the late 20th century. It was, however, infinitely more versatile, and Duncan could not imagine how life would be possible without it. Nor can I, Clarke, nor can I. Because of the finite size of clumsy human fingers, it had no more controls than its ancestors of 3 centuries earlier. There were 50 neat little studs. Each, however, had a virtually unlimited number of functions. That's a touchscreen. According to the mode of operation, for the character visible on each stud changed according to the mode. Thus, on alphanumeric, 26 of the studs bore the letters of the alphabet, while 10 showed the digits 0 to 9. On math, the letters disappeared from the alphabetical studs and were replaced by X, plus, divide, math symbols, and all the standard mathematical functions. Another mode was dictionary. The SEC stored over 100,000 words whose 3-line definitions could be displayed on the bright little screen, steadily rolling over page by page. Rolling over page by page. That's scrolling, dude. If desired. Clock and calendar. Dude, there's literally apps on all phones called Clock and Calendar, dude. Also used the screen for display, but for dealing with vast amounts of information, it was desirable to link to the SEC to the much larger screen of a standard console. You know, dude, that's a computer. That's your MacBook.
And how you can like screencast.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, but what the part that you're about to get to though is where Clarke had no idea what the future was going to hold. Because he talks about you had to the transmit receive bullseye operating in the near ultraviolet. So he's envisioning a world where they physically have to connect. So you have to have a lens on your mini-sec and a lens on your console, and they have to connect in order to connect. What he didn't understand was that we were going to have Wi-Fi.
Right.
Which is so
or
crazy.
Just generally like the internet.
Exactly.
How everything's just connected. You
Exactly.
can access things.
It's just amazing.
So obviously there are things you get wrong. Like no one's perfect.
No,
like how he
of
says
course.
the studs.
Well-
like that this thing has physical buttons. But what he envisioned was basically a touchscreen in that like you can do an infinite number of things with a 3x2 inch
oh, yeah.
surface of a phone.
But even before we got to smartphones, we had Blackberries.
Right, but BlackBerry, the buttons on Blackberries didn't change. That's what I'm saying. Is that a touchscreen? Just wait.
Yeah.
Say take your standard iPhone, okay? There are squares that are all in the same place to represent the apps.
Right.
And those apps can be switched out.
Right.
Like a button isn't permanent. It's just whatever
yeah.
the screen needs to display.
And even on your keyboard, you can hit the different keyboards.
Right.
Like when your little keyboard. But,
Yes,
no, but
yes.
no, but also what I was envisioning is, do you remember before smartphones and you had, just a dial pad,
Right.
right? You have each button has multiple. Remember when you would text?
Letters. I remember that, yeah.
Like
I
the
was
predictive
really good at it.
text. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and so it's like, it's weird because it's like what he's saying is almost like it took all of that technology and smushed it all together.
Right.
Like, it's just really interesting.
Yeah, he's just I think this is because it's like a practical thing that we all
Yeah,
use.
yeah.
He's not predicting like communication satellites.
Exactly.
We don't even I don't
Right.
understand now as a layperson.
Right.
So like he predicted like the real things that we use.
Yeah.
I think this is the most impressive version of that from my memory of all his novels.
Totally. It's amazing.
For show.
Yeah, it was really interesting how so much of the technology in this was like really on point.
Yeah.
Like, and there was a little bit like nothing went like he didn't go crazy with the technology advancements. Like they didn't have like flying cars. He just had regular cars, but they went on an automatic.
Like a Tesla.
Yeah. So it's like that's totally believable.
Right, and he talks about, dude, this is like, we don't have to get into this. I've talked about this way too much, and like at a certain point, it's going to become irrelevant. But I used to argue like that automatic drive, like self-driving cars would never be a thing because like if a mother is on the road with the self-driving car and she has her babies in the car with her, like, does she want to like trust a car that has no driver to not smash into her and kill her?
Right.
So the opposite of that is what Clarke says, that like that is unthinkable.
Mm-hmm.
That like no one, like the only way, in my opinion, self-driving cars would work is if they're all self-driving.
Yes, absolutely.
Like you can't have a mix.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can because we kind of do now, but it's not quite. You still have to be there as the driver. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And so that's just always been my thought, and I just like how Clarke says it in here. That I feel like he like doesn't he mention like there were like some psychopaths who would drive like in the past who had
Right.
like caused real wrecks.
Yeah.
And that was just such a rare thing because you just don't do that.
Exactly. And what is cool is, again, like these are not self-driving cars per se. You still have to be in the driver's seat,
Right.
but you put it on like an autopilot setting.
Yeah.
And then remember, like, like once you get off certain roadways, you do actually have to manually drive it,
Right.
which I just think is like totally believable.
My favorite and most believable version of self-driving cars is in the movie Upgrade. How
Oh, yeah.
they're in that car, dude.
Yes.
That movie, I fucking love that movie. Like
yeah.
that movie, even though there's certain little things that you can
Yeah.
add to ground it in reality and
Yeah.
kind of connect it to your audience. Like there's the part where he's driving his old muscle car
Yeah.
to his client. And he tells his wife, you have to come with me because you have to drive me back in your car
Yeah.
because I'm dropping off the car. But on the way there, she doesn't drive the car. She's in the passenger seat with him because it's a self-driving car.
Right.
You don't even need Which kind of begs the question, like, why does this dude need her to be with him to operate the
Right,
car? But his
right.
whole MO is that he's old school. He probably doesn't know how to work that thing.
Oh, right.
And so then later, the car is driving itself and they're sitting there. They're not even in the front seat or anything. They're just sitting there. The car's driving. And then it pulls off the road to like the wrong road because someone's controlling it. Mm-hmm. And she's like, car, take us home. Like, go home. Like, that is the thing we do today. You talk to the cell phone,
Yeah.
like, go to Google or whatever.
Right.
And then I love when she goes, pump the brake twice. Which, like, you don't even have to live in that world to realize, like, that's in all cars, that must be the universal stop the car.
Yeah.
Like, no matter who you are, if you're in a car and it's going uncontrollably,
Right.
you know that if you pump the brake twice,
Yeah.
you'll stop the car.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just like anyone who picks up a phone like, pretty much knows how to use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that in the future, if you have self-driving cars, they would have to be like universally understandable.
Absolutely.
I don't think if I got in a Tesla, I would know how to put it in automatic driving mode.
Agreed.
So I don't know. I think we're just getting there.
Yeah, exactly. We're like at the very beginning.
Yeah.
It was funny though. Remember I talked about they still can't do anything about bicyclists.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
still crazy.
Right. Yeah. So I would like to skip over all the details on Earth. He
Yeah,
goes to
it's-
Earth. He sees like
yeah.
Washington D.C.
Right.
and
I mean, it's just an exploration. He's creating contacts. He's, like
wait. So I want to
meeting
actually
people.
let's divert the conversation to the shit that I don't understand, so you can answer
Okay.
my questions.
Okay.
I was really intrigued when he meets. I think he meets over like video call with the doctor who's going to clone him.
Right.
Why doesn't he realize that doctor doesn't want to clone anyone anymore?
Correct. So
Why?
That the doctor that he calls up is the doctor that made him.
Right.
Like that's the doctor that Malcolm used and the
Yep.
doctor that Colin used. So
Yep.
he was expecting to use that same doctor.
Got it.
I would have to consult the text
Okay.
to find out to remember exactly what his qualms were. Oh, I know what it was.
Because the chapter ends with a cliffhanger, like
Now I
Dun-
remember.
like,
No,
Dun-
I just
Duncan like
remembered.
he like thinks it's one thing, but it could be another. So what is it?
So what it is the whole thing gets explained because in order to, so he's like, well, I still need to pursue this. So he does a little digging and he finds that doctor's young protege. So he was working, the doctor that cloned him that made him, was working with another guy who was younger and more progressive in the cloning concept.
Mm-hmm.
So what was going on was the younger guy decided, if we can clone people, why do we have to wait 9 months? We can do it in 4, right? That's when the older doctor was like, because that's the way nature intended it to be. But
Okay, Mr.
right.
Cloner.
Well, that's the thing. Then the counter to that is, but you're messing with nature.
Right.
So I think what happened was the guy just essentially had like an existential crisis and was like, I don't think what I'm doing is right anymore.
Okay.
When he was faced with,
I thought it was something interesting, not just just coming to a normal conclusion that,
No,
that, this shit that I'm playing God and that's not cool.
yeah, no, that's what it was. He was just like, wait a minute, like I'm like what I'm doing is not in line with nature.
Okay.
I think it's just like he had,
Not in line with nature, please.
yeah, I know.
You got people coming from Titan who can't even walk
I know.
because of Earth gravity.
Yeah. So then the young protege guy,
He's the one who clones him? Or
Yes.
he's the one who says he will?
right. So that's when he goes and he goes to the tropical island, and
Right.
I felt like we were right back there in
Deep range?
Deep Range, with the Golden Reef, and like all the
Like, Clarke, we know you love the ocean, but we didn't come here for the ocean. The
just gonna
Golden Reef.
sneak
dude.
it in. How about the weird part about the Ghost from the Grand Banks? There's a whole chapter. You said
Yeah.
that's one of his novels.
Yeah.
So I
He
that
just
part-
loves. He's just very interested in the Titanic.
I know, it's so funny, but it's just great how he just like finds ways to sneak all his interests into
Right.
every single thing that he does. It's
Yeah.
kind of interesting, but at the same time, it's kind of ridiculous.
Why? The concept, or just that he does that?
No, just he does that.
Right,
like,
right.
come on, like you just said, like you don't need
It's
to
interesting.
put the ocean in everything.
It's interesting in that one that he says they raised the Titanic 300 years after it sank, and in The Ghost of Grand Banks, written in the 90s, it takes
Yeah.
place in 2012. I guess it's just so he figured maybe we could do it sooner, but it's
Right.
also he's just obsessed with anniversaries. I guess
Yeah,
it has to be 100 years later.
yeah.
But anyway,
I'm pretty sure when I was reading, I thought that was really, really fascinating. The Titanic part, like describing them like walking through everything and how they were restoring everything. Like I really thought that part was cool, but at the same time, I was like, why does it need to be in this book?
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Dude, Ghost from the Grand Banks. Whew,
What?
that book's a trip. Just wait.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about the Enigma Associates? Can we like quickly go through it? Because
Yeah.
I don't think it's very interesting. So he signs up. Kalindi works for the Enigma Associates, and they're basically this group of people that like take you on insert excitement into your life
Yeah,
by
pretty much.
like I do like the concept of how basically what they do is they get in an airplane, a plane, some kind of flying machine that with like blacked out windows.
Yeah.
And aren't they drugged so they don't know how much time has gone by, or they just have no timepieces?
No, they just don't have
Okay.
timepieces. Yeah.
So they say you basically get in this craft that will take you literally anywhere on Earth out to the moon.
Yeah.
So you could be on the moon.
Yeah.
You could be on Earth. You don't know
Right.
where you are, but then they land. But there's something about time that because how do they not know how much time has gone by? Do they sleep?
Yeah, I think they just like trick them in certain ways. Like they can't see out the windows. They only have the viewfinders, and they're like, we don't even know. He's like, I don't even know if what I'm seeing is real.
Right.
And then they're like, they make a stop somewhere and like remember to pick up more people.
Right.
And then, but like they can't tell if it's like what time of day it is because it's like overcast or
Right,
whatever.
right.
And then they like dim the cabin light, so it's like, but they could be lying. Like they just don't know.
Yeah. So eventually they land somewhere. I mean, the concept's cool. They land somewhere,
Right.
they don't know where it is. They're like drinking and partying around a campfire, but they're in the wilderness. And the whole punchline is that they're in Central Park.
Yeah.
It's just like, ugh. But see, so those parts were interesting because this book has a severe lack of dialogue. Severe lack of dialogue. In
Oh
my
yeah,
opinion.
you're right because it's a lot of it's just
All
Duncan.
explanations.
Yeah.
dude. Ugh.
Yeah.
So that part actually had characters
Right,
talking to
right,
each other, being
right.
like, "I bet we're in Indonesia."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
that guy
Van
was
Allen's
yeah.
the wife when she's like, oh ha ha ha, you thought we were in Borneo or
right.
something.
Like that was interesting because it was like
Yeah.
people talking to each other.
Yeah, and then they got on the mini elephants.
That whole shit was just like it's,
So weird.
it's like, bro,
I know.
like Michael Crichton is gonna do genetic engineering so much more interesting than this in like
Right.
14 years. So as me in the future, I don't care about mini elephants. So
But anyway, the important part about all of that to the plot is just that that's where Kalindi works. He called up Kalindi after he'd been on Earth for a couple weeks, and he's like, "Oh, I thought it was weird that like she didn't reach out. She would have known because my name would have been all over the place because basically I'm an ambassador for Titan, like I'm important." And then he like gets on the phone with her, and she's like, "Weird," and that's how she's like, "Well, I can't meet you, but you can come on this trip." And then that's when like something weird is going on with Kalindi, because at the base of all of this is a little bit of mystery.
yeah.
A little bit of mystery. So we're like trying to be detectives.
Let's get to the end though.
Okay.
Because honestly, it'll be good for the audience because I don't really know what the ending was all about.
Okay.
So he meets Carl at a thing that's looking for searching the skies for evidence of alien life? Like, are they looking for radio transmissions?
Yes, essentially, we could have watched Contact for
Right,
this,
exactly.
and we would have had a lot of parallels.
That was pretty cool how you described the massive, like, circle. It was like an eye. What was it called? Something about an eye. Wasn't that its name?
Oh, yeah.
That's the,
Yeah.
no, not Centaur. Cyclops.
Yeah.
Right.
Cyclops.
So, because it looked like a giant eye.
Right.
Is it in Africa? No, the Middle East.
Yeah,
Saudi Arabia?
Yes.
Yep,
that's
okay,
right.
okay,
They
okay.
yeah. So, yeah, it's like a huge array of,
Massive.
enormous of many, many, many different satellite dishes.
Right.
So essentially, like Contact when they're out in the desert,
Yes.
and she's sitting there, and they have all the,
Yes.
So it's like that, only on an even grander scale.
Right.
Yeah.
And then of course, remember the story we read where the guy gets assassinated
Yeah. Oh,
with
yeah.
light,
Right.
like, and he blinds him.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That happened. But so tell me about Carl.
Okay, so he finds out that the reason why Kalindi was being so weird is because Carl was staying with her.
How long had Carl been there? Oh, 2 weeks earlier.
Yes,
I
2
remember
weeks before Duncan got to
there.
her.
Got it.
So the whole reason why he even like comes on to all of this is that there's rumblings of Titanite, which is a precious
Yes. Okay.
gemstone or whatever that supposedly only comes from Titan.
Mm-hmm.
That is being like, there's rumors that it's being sold or like
Illegally.
illegally
Exported to Earth, right?
Exactly,
To
right.
a seller.
Yes.
Okay.
So this, like that, all of that stuff combined, does a little detective work, finds out that Carl's on Earth. So then he's like, oh, is Carl wrapped up in some like illegal weirdness or like what's going on? And then he's like, well, I'm the representative from Titan. I have to get involved, and for the good of Titan, for the good of my reputation, blah 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 blah. I was like, good Lord.
Just do it instead of like
Yeah, oh my
talking
God.
about it
Oh,
in
yeah.
paragraph after paragraph of
Exactly.
like internal monologue.
Exactly. So finally he tracks down Carl, and he's at Cyclops.
Mm-hmm.
So when he gets there,
I'm about to have another rant about how much I fucking hate mysteries. The moment Carl's about to explain,
I know.
he gets killed.
I know.
It's like, dude,
I know.
I was about to find out.
I know.
So Carl's acting weird up on one of the things.
Yep. They
And-
climb up. Yeah, they climb up on one of the desks.
And what do they
Yeah.
talk about?
He starts. Well, really, all he talks about. They don't talk about anything. That's the thing. So they keep talking about the notebook. Carl's clutching a notebook, and he's dabbling in whatever. And all they're talking about is kind of like personal stuff, like
Right.
why didn't you tell me you were here?
Yeah, yeah.
What are you up to? What's going on? And then remember, because there's animosity between the two of them because they haven't spoken in like 10 years or something like that. And Carl was never the same after the breakdown, and blah blah blah. So that was the part that I was a little bit confused with. Someone was sent to protect Duncan. So it's kind of like he had like a secret bodyguard that like he didn't even know about. Was it the Titan ambassador on Earth? Was he the one
I don't
that
know.
sent it? Anyway, so yeah, so the guy like basically shoots like a laser.
Yeah, the point was to blind him.
Yeah, just to blind
Even
Carl.
just
Yeah,
temporarily.
because Carl comes at him and he's like, oh, you can help me actually.
Yeah.
And so we're like, oh my God, like there's going to be some reconciliation here and blah, blah, blah. And then, oh, nope. Carl scrambles for his precious notebook and falls to his death. I
Like
was so disappointed.
Yeah, and then they're like, it was only supposed to blind him temporarily.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you blinded someone who's like hundreds of feet off
Yeah,
the
I
air.
know.
Like, obviously they're gonna fall.
Like ridiculous. It was terrible.
Yeah.
So then at that point, since like I think like the bodyguard guy was like sent by like a governmental agency, they get control. Oh, plus because he's not like, they have to like, there's like governmental stuff that goes on because he's not a resident of Earth, so they have to like take his body and all his belongings and like figure out basically like what to do with him and stuff. And that's when like the government gets involved, and they're trying to figure out what he was up to. So then like it becomes like this whole stupid thing where Duncan becomes like a detective. It's like, what the fuck? And then you find out.
So what was he doing?
What Carl was up to.
They found the moon memnism. I don't know what it's called. Memnishire.
No. Wait. It's Nemocene.
Yeah.
I looked it up because I listened to how you were supposed to say it because it was a tough one.
Yeah, Memicin looks like.
No. It's
Nemicin.
Yeah, it's like a mnemonic. Wait, how do you pronounce it?
Memicin.
No, that's not how you pronounce it. It's Nemozine.
Nemozine. Okay.
Nemozine.
Okay.
Okay. Is another moon?
Yeah, of Saturn.
Nemozine is another moon of Saturn. That's right. Carl had been moon hopping because Carl at his like deepest level is a scientist, right?
Right.
Yeah, which is totally different from Malcolm, Colin, Duncan. They're like
politicians.
Yeah, essentially. And like entrepreneurs, you know, in some way.
So
I
what
guess.
did he find?
So
evidence of alien life, right?
No, the potential.
Like massive radio waves.
Right. So I guess the whole thing is that Cyclops, which is the giant array on Earth, then moved to like the moon and became irrelevant and like all this stuff.
What isn't
They're
what
only
he was
looking
doing
for...
on Memicin was secret, right?
Well,
doesn't Duncan not even know that it's there?
No, he hadn't done anything. That's the thing. He hadn't done anything. Carl hadn't done anything. He was at Cyclops trying to get the information so that he could get someone to do what he wanted to do on the moon.
Okay.
So that's the other thing is like we're only talking about like things in theory. Like nothing ever happened.
I thought they discovered something out there.
No.
They're just realizing that would be the best place to confirm a discovery that was found on Earth?
No, nobody found anything. This is all theory.
They found, like, radio waves, right?
No.
Emanating from a tenth of the distance between here and the next star. That's all in the end.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. So they found that, but they can't, these certain waves, you can't truly listen or study them
when you're so close to the sun,
right? Because of all the interference. Yeah.
Okay.
So he wanted to take what Cyclops was doing on the Earth and Moon and change the technology and put it way out on Nemozine.
Why does the motherfucker have to be secretive about that? Why is this all wrapped up in mystery?
I literally don't know.
Why did he just say, "Hey, Duncan, while you're there, ask him about these radio waves we discovered"? I don't get it.
But I mean, I guess you could say that because of the animosity between them, it literally makes no sense. And like, also, like, it's such a cool thing. Like, if he had shared it, why wouldn't, like, you're telling me no one in any of the places that were colonized, no one would be interested in that?
That's what I'm saying. Like, someone who works at that array that they had their fight at.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And then they kept saying how it was Cyclops on Earth was pretty much like useless, but yet it was still operational. So like, what?
So some of them were rusted in place.
Yeah, but they were still...
Oh, dude, that was actually interesting.
Yeah,
remember?
Yeah.
Because they put it in the desert because there would be because it's so dry.
Right.
There would be no rust.
Right.
But then they changed the environment because of technology.
The weather control.
Damn, that's more interesting. So then it became like a rainforest around there.
Right. Yeah.
Deserts
were, they were saying like deserts were shrinking on Earth.
Anyway.
So yeah, it gets like so convoluted at the end. Like, I don't understand like why, like you said, I don't understand why everything was such a secret. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah. So then what decision does he make?
Duncan?
Yeah. So he clones Carl instead of himself?
Right.
But why?
So
Just
I think
sentimentality?
no. So I think what it comes down to is that he realizes, and I do appreciate the sentiment at the end of it. I think what he realizes is that the way things are headed, the things that they're doing on Titan are going to start getting phased out. So Titan's not going to be as important as it currently is or once was. So he knows that they have to do something else in order to keep themselves relevant. And so this idea of the antennas basically covering the surface of Nemazine, searching for life beyond the stars, is going to be what's going to keep them going. So
How? What if they don't find anything? Like, that was a waste of money.
So I think that, but I mean, it's a gamble because it's like the hydrogen thing that Malcolm first ventured out on Titan for.
So basically,
was a gamble.
Instead of making a bunch of sequels with forced incest to Rama, this book should have gotten sequels.
Most definitely.
Like, I
Most
wanted
definitely.
to know, and then even hearing that, now that I'm learning this, like, it's all speculation, and it's even more speculation. Wasn't he talking about like sentient comets at the end?
Yeah. But anyway, but to just wrap up the story though, is what he realizes is that Titan doesn't need another Mackenzie. Titan needs
a science guy,
a scientist.
Okay, now it's making sense.
Right.
In order to deal with the hydrogen stuff, you need a politician or a business person.
Right.
Okay.
So
All
it's
right,
like
I get it now.
they need a new. They need. He's like
new blood.
Right. He's like, this needs to come to an end.
It all makes sense now. Now that it's
Yeah.
written by Clarke. Just
Yeah.
realizing this, that it's like getting away from business and politics,
Right.
and going to science.
Right.
The time for politics and religion is obsolete. The
Yes.
time now is for science and
going. I mean,
I forget the quote.
They've
Shit.
made it. They've made it all the way out to Titan. I mean, they've inhabited Titan. So it's like, where are you going to go from there? So you have to bridge that gap between the
Got it.
rest of the solar system, the galaxy, everything, whatever. You got to go further than that.
I do think that I'm pretty sure he mentions that I feel like he figured out the source was like between.
Right.
It was in the quote wilderness of space,
Yes.
meaning it wasn't even. We don't even have to look as far as the nearest star.
Exactly.
The source of this sound,
Right.
or these radio waves, are coming from like close enough to, I guess, make it
Yeah.
feasible of like giving us a good reason to try to investigate it more.
Exactly.
Okay, it's starting to make sense.
Yeah.
now.
So I think it's like, it's just, it's like a great, like, I just loved it. Like when I finished the book, I was just like, oh, no way. Like I thought he was bringing back his own clone,
Right.
when really
I mean, I
just
figured he
created
wasn't
a new,
because, dude, he goes there to clone himself, and it's like never a thing that's ever talked about.
Right.
Like, so I just figured he wasn't just going to show up with a clone of himself.
yeah.
Because it wasn't a part of anything. But my thought with this was that it's just a sentimental thing, like, oh, I cloned Carl because he's my dead buddy. But no, it's
Right.
so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
So I commend Clarke for that.
Yeah.
Although I will say, I think it's good that he usually sticks to shorter books than this one, because I feel like so much of this book is just superfluous,
Oh, 100%.
especially now realizing the whole point of the book
Right.
was totally lost on me.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I was distracted and it took me longer to
Right.
read than I expected.
Yeah.
But still, man.
It's just a long, it's a really long, convoluted journey to a really interesting concept when you could have just,
I think it speaks to Clarke's whole, like, Clarke's a very like nice dude. He doesn't want to talk shit about things that don't interest him. So I think the beginning makes more sense that Clarke is like acknowledging that business and politics get you to a certain point. Like the Mackenzies were necessary in the beginning,
oh yeah,
but once you get to that point,
Right.
you can't be thinking about the old ways.
exactly. Yes, exactly.
So it's like the space race, and he talks about the space race.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
spurned by politics.
Exactly.
And then we got there, and now what do we do?
right.
Apparently nothing until
Right.
now.
Exactly.
So, all right, it's starting to make sense. I dig it.
And also, it's really interesting because as soon as I finished it, I was like, I feel like If I went back and I read that very first chapter,
Right.
it would have that chapter would have a lot more weight to it, and it does. I did. I read it again, and I
Okay.
was like, he set up, like Clarke set up the entire. That first chapter sets up the entire novel, and you don't realize it
Right.
until you go back and read it.
I love that in like movies.
Yeah.
When they do that.
Because remember, the very beginning starts with him dialing as a 10-year-old boy accidentally dialing the wrong number
and getting a sound.
Yes. From the surface of Titan.
Yes.
And so it's like really cool because obviously it's not the same sound, but it's just the first person he calls is Carl.
Wow.
So it's just kind of
you're right.
cool.
Okay, it's a good book.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But
dig
I totally agree that like there's just so much
You don't
like
need Charlie.
fat to be shaved in the middle of it.
Get rid of Charlie. Get rid of the whole honey thing. Oh my
no.
God, dude.
Yeah.
Kalindi didn't taste like honey anymore. Good Lord, dude. Have you ever had a spoonful of honey?
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that taste good?
It's quite a sugar rush.
I hate when people connect honey to like being sweet and like tasteful. Like if I feel like if I took a spoonful of honey, I would gag.
No, I mean, it's good. It's a lot, though. It's really rich. I think like a little bite of milk chocolate would be better.
Way better. Anyway.
Like an M&M.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a good book. I'm not here to tell you what to read or not to read. I feel like I used to do that in the beginning of this podcast. I wouldn't start with it with Clarke, but
No.
it's a good book.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And
Very different from a 2001.
yeah.
Or even a Rama, dude. Rama, you're exploring the unknown.
Exactly.
This, you're exploring the known.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's why I appreciated all the exploration in the beginning about cloning.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the like cloning was was on the mind in the 70s, whereas it probably wasn't so much in the 50s and the 60s
Right.
when he was writing his earlier stuff.
Yeah, everything in the beginning, the minute he gets on Earth, I'm just kind of like, oh, here we go.
Especially because it just brings it back like to before even now, like
Yeah.
before what we know.
Yeah, I know.
And it's like a history lesson in a sci-fi book.
Yeah, it's like, no, thank you.
All right, so let's talk about.
I'm glad I read it. I'll say that. I never would have read this, like on my own because my draw is for Rama and 2001: Space Odyssey. So I really enjoyed this, just like I really enjoyed the Deep Range.
Yeah.
I think it shows, that Clarke has good writing skills.
Oh yeah.
Outside of the grandeur of space and technology.
Dude, okay, real quick. We don't have to get into this too much, but you could even, if they had just, like, it's the biggest letters on the back, America's Quincentennial. Like, that doesn't even need to be in the book.
No.
You don't even have to talk about America.
No.
But it was released in 1976. 1776. Maybe that's why.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, we did just touch on it, like how there is all that, like you said it, like, talking about the history and the space, like he had to fit that stuff in there somewhere so that the story could come full circle. But Anders Tinker could have been a little more concise.
Yeah. I agree. And I will say, last thing I'll say, and then we should move on.
Yeah.
Is that the most impressive in terms of like practical predictions about the way we are living as humans now. Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Multiple instances where he's literally spot on.
Oh, yeah. It's uncanny.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the movie. But first, can I get more water?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Do you ever feel like there is something else? An outward road from Earth? Is our destination here on Mother Gaia or on the other side of the sky? The veil that protects us. Protection can be overbearing and constricting. So if Babe wants to grow up, Babe must leave the cradle. Join your host, Jared Parisi, the dreamiest of the space dreamers, and travel with him on the road to enlightenment via the golden age of science fiction. A new episode of Space Dreamers podcast is released every Thursday on iTunes, Spotify, and all the major podcast channels. Dream away, Space Dreamers.
So the movie we decided to watch is called High Life.
Mm-hmm.
Came out 2018, you said?
I believe so.
Just another brooding Robert Pattinson movie. Just goddamn Robert Pattinson fest.
Yeah, it's 2018. It's directed by Claire Dennis in her English language debut.
Nice.
She is French.
Probably Denise. Claire Denise. I don't know. Probably edit that out.
Oh, I think it's actually Denis.
Denis, right on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Robert Pattinson, Juliette Binoche, who is wonderful. I love her. But always does some strange shit. Which is exactly what this movie was.
She's a very attractive woman.
Yeah, she is.
Especially, I think she's older now.
Yeah, she is older now.
So it's, yeah. But anyway.
Yeah.
Why is it called High Life?
Because, I don't know, because they're all freaking high in space? I have no idea.
Seems like a very literal and stupid title for a movie that's not literal or stupid.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't understand the title.
I didn't love it.
Me neither. I have like a, yeah.
But I'm not bothered by things that are disturbing, really, in movies. Especially when they're in a movie as weird as that. If it was like literal, you know, if it was like a literal sci-fi movie and horrible things were happening, I'd be like, all right. Actually, there was a moment in this movie where I was totally not okay. It wasn't that I wasn't okay with it, but I was like, I said out loud, I was like, I don't remember what I said, but it was so disturbing.
Right. That's really what it is that I was just bothered by some of the things in it. Like just, you know, like, I don't know, like the movie doesn't bother me. I'm not like like disgusted or turned off or like what, like I can like, but there were just a couple things that just like rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know. So
I do. What I want to say is that I like movies that while I'm watching them, I'm like either confused or I don't know how I feel about them. But then when they're over, you're like still thinking about them.
Yes.
And although this movie does do that, I don't think it did it to the degree of other movies that I appreciate a lot more.
Agreed.
Like I've been equally as confused while watching other movies, but then after I'm like, that was actually stunning.
Right.
With this one, I definitely thought about it after, but I don't think all the pieces come together.
Correct. I think I feel the same way.
Like I do remember when I realized why he had a baby, I was like, oh,
yeah,
clearly,
right.
You know, it's one of those movies where it starts and then it tells the story of why what's happening in the beginning is happening by going into the past.
Yes.
Which is cool. That's a cool way to tell a story. But I don't know, maybe just because what's happening in the present is the result of something so horrible.
Right.
That kind of while you're watching it, you're like, ugh, like gross.
Right.
So it's about connected to the novel. It's about, I guess, trying to figure out how to have babies in space because traveling through space, the radiation causes you to not be able to produce offspring. So if we were to ever have to go on really long voyages where we had to go somewhere and populate some colonized planet, it would be impossible.
Yeah. Or near impossible.
Well, yeah.
As you find out.
Yeah.
Because there is success.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's an interesting concept.
So, I mean, that's another thing. Like, what were they? So, but they're also going to a black hole.
Right.
So, what are those two the same? Are they separate? Like, let's, since we're going there anyway, let's try to make babies on the way?
Yes, I think so. Because the whole point is they're all criminals. So even the doctor is a criminal. They're death row criminals. So everyone on the...
So unnecessary. Dude, people would volunteer to do that.
Yeah, I know. That's what's so funny. is that like there'd be plenty of people who
like it doesn't have to be disturbing. Like there are people who would have volunteered to go and try to be like artificially inseminated and just to be in space and like for science. You know, it's like, why are they criminals?
But because they don't have any other choices. I know, like, I understand like why it's convenient, but I totally agree.
But for
that I
storytelling,
feel like there would be enough crazy people in this world who would volunteer for that.
But like in terms of storytelling, like why? I feel like I'm about to get into my issues that I have with The Village. Like
maybe it's an element of desperation.
The thing I was going to connect it to is how in The Village you don't have to make the fact that he is developmentally disabled and she's blind. Like those characters don't have to be that way.
Right.
Like Adrian Brody's character doesn't have to be mentally disturbed.
Right.
Like people kill for jealousy anyway.
Every day. Yes, I got
so
you.
That
exactly.
I was going to connect that.
No,
to the movie.
Well, yeah, because you would be able to populate this experimental ship without them having to be really messed up.
Yeah,
people.
and I think that things could go wrong and disturbing shit could happen regardless of them being criminals.
Right, absolutely.
And you would just have it's more interesting to see people who aren't already classified as violent or whatever to become violent.
Yeah.
Because then it just becomes a cliche when people start getting like raped.
But I do think that I do think that element of desperation is important, like in the film. Like, I don't know if it was like a real thing, but like in the film, it's like, because everything that people are doing, it's like all the choices that they're making are out of desperation because they have no other choice.
Okay, but exactly. If you're on a spaceship headed to a black hole, it doesn't matter if you're a criminal or if you're desperate on Earth. You're in a ship. You have no choice.
Right. Although
That's
I
my
guess
point.
Okay, but maybe storytelling, it would take a lot longer to get to that point.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
You know, like you'd have to get like the psychological stuff.
Yeah.
Like then that would be the point of the movie, as opposed to if you start crazy.
Right. And
then
it
you
also
get to the other stuff faster.
It's also original.
Yeah.
So that you, as soon as you find out they're criminals, you're like, I'm interested. I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
Whereas everything else, it's like, it's like I've been there. You know?
So they were death row criminals who were given the opportunity to either spend the rest of their life in prison and then be executed, or hop on a spaceship in the interest of science.
Right.
Can you imagine how controversial that would be if we did that, like in real life?
I mean, everything's fucking controversial in real life now.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of interesting though, because like they didn't just like stick them on a ship; they like trained them.
You have to.
Yeah, so like it's really kind of interesting because it's like why don't we just do that now? Like, let's just find out what could potentially happen on Mars. Why do we have to like send our best and brightest? You know, like why don't we just offer this to people who have no other choice? It didn't even have to be inmates. What about like terminally ill people? You know, like we train them for the experience of their life and we find out what it's like on Mars.
Because as we see in the movie, that's not a good idea. You really think that's a good idea?
I mean, why not?
I think people should volunteer to do things like that.
No, but that's what I'm saying. They were given a choice. Yeah,
but you're exactly what you're saying. They're desperate. They're not given a choice. They're in a corner,
right?
And someone's offering to drill a little hole so they can escape through the corner, but into a black hole and like Apocalypse Now shit with that lady.
Yeah, but you could do service in the name of science. You could your life could actually mean something. It could be redemption.
Their lives mean something. Don't say that their lives don't mean something just because they're in jail.
Yeah, I know.
Were any of those people in that movie wrongly accused?
Yeah, I know. That's.
Were they?
No, I don't think so.
There should have been a character.
Oh, totally.
Who was.
Yeah.
Well, because so much more interesting.
Right. But I mean, even then, yeah, because then why would your? Although I don't know, they don't really tell. What is it, Cherney? They don't really tell.
Who, Andre 3000?
Yeah,
Dude, he did not belong in that movie.
no, I know. He was even barely in it.
Dude, that's the thing. Like, that's the one thing that's weird about that movie. Like, they're never together. Like, they're always like apart from each other. Or there's like he's always in the garden. Like, I know he say that he slept in there.
Yeah.
And then there's like that one scene where he sees like her come out of that little chamber or whatever. And
Yeah.
he makes a comment about it.
Right.
But like, I feel like all space movies is always like they're always in a room together at one point interacting.
There was that one time, remember, they were all working out.
Yeah, but they weren't. Were they in space?
Yeah,
I don't remember.
they
them
were in the
working
hallway
out.
of the.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
But so the one
No,
thing I found it, like I said, I like the whole show the present and then explain how the present became the way it is.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand a lot of the things that were happening in the present, even after I learned. Like, why did he put them in spacesuits before he? Like, why did he put them in? Remember in the beginning when he shot them all? Why did he put them in spacesuits? Like, I'm just like, why are you doing that?
So I don't think that it has anything to do like plot wise, but it visually was interesting.
I just like, what if yours ripped, dude?
Yeah, I
Wouldn't you
know.
want a spare?
I know.
See, when I saw that, I thought that maybe they were like, maybe it's just because I'm sci-fi minded.
Yeah.
I thought maybe they were actually asleep.
Oh, I thought they were too.
And he was, okay,
Yeah.
this is what I thought. And this, in my opinion, would make a more interesting movie. I thought they were asleep and he was running out of oxygen.
Yes.
But then again, that doesn't make sense either.
Right.
That he would stick them outside so that they wouldn't be breathing his oxygen and he
Right.
could come back and pick them up.
Yeah, but
no.
see, I think honestly, like you just answered the question is like if you do that, then you start having questions. So it's like it just further confuses you as you're watching the movie,
Yeah.
which I truly think was the point.
Yeah, I think, yeah. I appreciate like when it's, but maybe I don't understand the movie. I don't know. I was definitely not 100% into it. I might have been like, staring at my phone or whatever. But
Yeah, I mean, and I spent the majority of the time just kind of like, what is going on here?
so even parts where, remember, and I don't even really remember what exactly happened, but remember there's a part where like she's in the Juliette Binoche is in the hallway. Mm-hmm. And like there's a guy like watching her, and then the guy comes up to her like behind her.
Yeah.
Like you got to start with something I recognize. What was she doing in that hallway? Just like enjoying the wind?
Yes.
I'm like, what are you doing?
I know.
I
Because I mean,
didn't
if
get that.
you think about it, I looked at it more like
If everything's weird, then the weird things won't seem weird and won't have an impact.
Yeah, that's a good point. I looked at it like
she
you
was
you
doing
guys are
paperwork?
stuck.
I'd be like, it's a scientist doing paperwork. What is this guy doing? But it's like she's standing with the fake wind blowing on her, and then a dude comes up to her and does something just as weird as enjoying fake blowing wind. So they're all fucking weird.
Yeah, they
Sorry
definitely
to
are.
interrupt.
No. I mean, they're definitely all weird, but I looked at it more like, again, like desperate people, like just they're stuck on this spaceship knowing that they're not going to survive. You're not going to survive.
They weren't going to survive on Earth.
Right, so it's
They're
like that,
already desperate.
Right, exactly. So it's like that, but it's like that false hope, Like think about it. Like if you're like a death row inmate, you can always hope for a stay of execution. You can always hope for more time.
You're right. You're right. Weren't they under the impression they would come back?
Oh yeah, they were completely lied to.
Okay.
They also didn't know, like they didn't know about the experiments. They didn't know about anything.
Right. Wait, so did they know they were
think they
going to
knew
be
anything.
they were going to be tested in terms of fertility?
No, they didn't know anything.
See, if this shit was clearer or maybe explained a little earlier,
yeah,
I would
you're
have
right.
been
I
more
don't
into
think
it.
You're totally right. I don't think they knew anything.
I'm not interested in watching Robert Pattinson with a baby in space. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah, it was.
I'm
weird.
not interested in that.
Yeah.
And it was just too much of it in the beginning.
And the only thing that's interesting about that is how that happened.
Right. If that had been a snippet in the beginning,
Yeah.
like just less.
So really, I think
that was just like not even like in a Twilight he's hot sense, but just in like he's like such an awesome avant-garde actor. Like, let's just watch him be with a baby in space. Like, I'm interested in watching that.
The only thing though is like that whole part made me so uneasy because I didn't understand what his intentions were. I was like, why is it just him? Why is he with this baby? is he like, is there ill will? Is he going to hurt the baby? Is this his baby? Like,
for me, he gave off warm fatherly vibes the entire time.
Oh no. And like how he was like,
it's Robert Pattinson, dude. He's
dog.
like, everybody fucking loves that dude.
He gave me some weird vibes. I
Not
wasn't
at all for me.
No, I was very uneasy.
He was talking to the baby even when he was doing work. There was zero neglect going on.
No, I know. So that's the thing is like it started that way, and then I felt weird about it. And then I felt better about it.
He was so fatherly to that baby and so nice.
Yeah, but I mean,
I get that. I mean, who knows if you're watching the beginning of the movie? You don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong, but for me, I was just like, okay, I get it. The dad's in space, man. Like, can we move on?
Yeah. See, I definitely didn't perceive it like that. I was very like weary of his intentions and like what the circumstances were.
So, and then what my prediction followed through. Like he was a good person the entire movie, right? He didn't do anything wrong. He was pupil numero uno. He got raped. He didn't rape.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
I feel like, I don't know if that's a good thing, but for me, it just became not interesting because the whole movie, you're like, he's a good dude.
Right.
And then he was still a good dude at the end.
I mean, that's again, like, like, I hate the concept of good and bad when it comes to people because it's like, not everybody
it's a movie.
No, I know, but like that's the thing is like he his crime was he murdered his friend.
Wasn't he a kid when he did that?
Yeah, as a kid. So you got to wonder what
he's like Mr. Innocent the whole movie.
Right. So but like that's what I'm saying like is it fair to punish a child with death because like what
I agree, but that conversation you don't have to have with sci-fi, So like,
right?
I don't know. I don't think Robert Pattinson's a bad actor, but I was just sick of watching him interact with that baby in the beginning. I feel like it just went on too long.
Yeah,
and like,
well, I agree with you, but my sentiments were different. Yeah. I was bothered by it because I felt uncomfortable by it.
So basically, I guess what I'm saying is by the time you finally get to some like intricate stuff,
right?
I was a little checked out already. Because plus he's not just interacting with the baby. Then he shoots the people out in their spacesuits, and I'm like, why are they wearing spacesuits?
And then when he has to check in with the computer to continue the life support.
Oh yeah.
Like that was an interesting concept.
The whole movie's fucked up.
And also because that part, like, why does it even matter? Like, the spaceship's not coming back. Like, what do you concern? Like, I don't get what would be the point of having to check in?
What do you mean?
Like how they had to check in every day to continue the life support of the ship? But
because if no one checks in, then you turn off the life support because clearly no one's alive and no one needs life support.
Right, but my question is, why does it even matter?
Why does what matter?
Like, if the life support runs or not, whether people are alive or not.
Was that ship in contact with Earth?
I don't even know. It had to have been. Yeah, it had to have been. It had to have been.
That seems to me like he's checking in with the ship, not with Earth.
He's
basically telling the ship, like, yeah, I'm still alive.
Right,
so
but
keep the life support going.
Yeah, but my point is, why does it matter if the life support is running or not on the ship?
So that he's alive to support life.
Okay, but but that's what I'm saying. If no one's alive, why does it matter if the life support continues to run? It's a self-contained ship. It's not like you're wasting resources.
True.
Right? So what's the point? Why does it matter?
Maybe the ship is trying to... He hasn't gotten to... No, he did get to the black hole, right?
Yeah.
By that time?
Yeah.
So maybe this is the ship's trying to go home? Maybe it's save power? I don't know.
No, I don't think that was ever the intention.
I don't know. Dude.
And then also the dog ship.
Dude, by that time, I was like, I thought he was going to meet himself, and that would have been cool. But no, he met dogs, and I was like, what the actual fuck's going on?
I know. And
no clue what's going on there.
And what were they, 7, and that was 6? And I was like...
Oh, so that means they sent dogs before them?
yeah, there were lots of. They must have sent a bunch. Which
So
is
it's like a multi-universe thing?
So like what? Multi-universe thing? What are you talking about?
Never mind. I don't know.
So no, it's like tons of experiments were going on in space. They obviously sent out ship 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Each one had a different experiment going on.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So that was really
So
odd.
was he on the other side? No, he didn't go. Oh, only the girl went into the black hole. He didn't go into the black hole. Where did that ship come from? Where did the dog ship come from?
Okay, yeah. See, this is where it gets real weird because if the end is a black hole and there was already a black hole, what the hell were they doing out there?
Wait, what?
Because there's the girl who goes into the black hole.
Yes.
And you see her like explode.
I remember.
But then at the end, that's another black hole.
Well, how do you know it was another one? Oh, look, okay, hold on. Real quick.
Yeah.
I don't understand what happens between approaching the black hole, sending that girl through it, and then him with a baby. Where is the ship in between that time?
I have no idea.
I feel like it must have been near the black hole.
Oh, so maybe it's the same black hole?
And then, yeah, so then the other ship with the dogs on it, does that come out of the black hole or does he just see it there?
Oh, I don't know. I interpreted it as it was the same, like they were just on the same trajectory.
Okay.
See, and that's
I
of course.
don't know.
Well, see, and that's the other thing is that a lot of like there were certain things like you know how you were comparing like the explanation of gravity on the ship. So like there are certain things that made a lot of sense like scientifically,
Right.
but then like a lot of things that didn't make sense scientifically.
Dude, it was also very jarring when it cut to the scene on the train. This movie of just like
Right.
totally nothing explained.
Yeah.
To then on the train and this like scientist guy or whatever he was, a lawyer. I don't know what he was, but he was like
Yeah, they
explaining
could've
this all
done
this
that.
shit. And I'm
Totally
like,
could have done that
I was
better.
like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also didn't understand, like, maybe you don't want to get into this, but like, what was the point of that room that she was in?
The box?
I thought that was to inseminate, to
No.
get her pregnant.
No.
What is the point of that? Like,
It's the fuck box.
but it's a machine.
Yeah.
What's the point of that?
So,
Entertainment?
yeah. Just to occupy them. Yeah, I know.
Why would they even
I
put that on
know.
a ship full of prisoners who are experiments?
I don't know.
That seems really elaborate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think that movie was obsessed with sex. I mean, it's made by French people. I thought that scene was cool. I mean, the way it was filmed.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But disturbing and weird.
yeah, because see, that's the thing is that, like, I think that's why I continued to watch it is because there's definite intrigue. I mean, stylistically and the way things are filmed and scenes and, you know, like even the spaceship itself was kind of neat when they showed it from, you know, so it's like that's what kept me watching it. But it's definitely one of the weirder films I've seen.
Yeah, and I mean, just really disturbing. Like,
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen
And like I
a
said,
woman rape a man in a movie.
I know.
And that was fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, rape is always fucked up in movies, but that was just,
It was
that lady was crazy.
Oh yeah.
And it was definitely, I don't know if I made this connection, but or I read it online that it's kind of like Apocalypse Now because but okay, oh no, okay, hold on. Actually, this is what I was going to say earlier when I connected to the village.
Yeah.
If she's already a criminal, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's already classified as not fit, not fit for society.
Right, because she killed her husband and her children.
Okay. Then it's not shocking that she is a psychopath.
Agreed.
And is lying and raping people and artificially inseminating people against
Right.
their will.
Right.
It's more interesting if she started out as a normal scientist and maybe was like corrupted by these people that she spent months and months in space
Yeah,
with.
yeah,
Or
okay.
or just like this long duration in space. Like it's more interesting if you start out relatable.
Right.
And not to say that like if you're in prison that you're not relatable to people who aren't in prison.
Right.
We're all human.
Yeah.
But but it's a movie and
Yeah.
all you can do is characterize people certain ways, and the point of characterizing people is to tell the audience something about them.
Right, totally.
So if you're telegraphing that this woman is a certain way, and then she acts, I guess, in that way, I don't know,
Yeah.
then it's less interesting, in my opinion, than something like
Right. The degradation.
the movie I
of-
bring up all the time in this goddamn
What?
podcast, Ad Astra. Like, the dude, he's a scientist in the beginning
Right.
who wants to go to Neptune to look for life, and
then
being
he-
out there, he's corrupted
Right.
by the emptiness of space,
yeah.
and the fact that he found nothing when he got there. He
Right.
didn't find evidence of aliens.
Yeah.
So he kind of went crazy.
Yeah.
In this movie, she's a sex doctor.
Yeah.
She's a murderous sex doctor
Yeah.
who ends up murdering and raping in space.
Right.
So you kind of just set it up and knock it down. But no,
Yeah.
you didn't set it up and knock it down. You like knocked it down and then showed us the setup. I don't know, man. I don't know. I didn't.
It's weird,
I
though,
didn't.
because-
I didn't find her interesting at all.
No.
Like, I didn't think her character was very.
No.
She was one dimensional.
100%.
Like, I was never tricked by her to think
No.
maybe she was a cool person.
Oh no, she was straight up creepy
Yeah.
and out of control. I mean, she's kind of like, it's like a Dr. Frankenstein situation where she's just fucking with life and
Nah, man. Frankenstein starts out to bring his someone that he loves back to life.
well, one could say that she was trying to bring back her children that she killed.
Okay,
I mean,
true.
so what's interesting is you said, talking about like how, like, not to say people in prison aren't relatable, we're all humans, blah, blah, blah. So it's really interesting and that we shouldn't be surprised by her behavior. So it's not that her behavior was surprising. It's that no matter what, it was so disturbing.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, this movie, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
It just left it's like I felt like there were like so many things that I was just like, I didn't need to see that. I didn't need to watch a movie with that in it. Like I said, even the dogs, like I'm really disturbed by the dogs. Like
yeah, we do that.
I
We
know,
did that.
but it was just like it was like on top of all of this other shit that I just suffered through. You're
I
gonna
didn't understand
add
the dogs
that.
at all.
That I know, that's what I mean.
So I wasn't disturbed by it.
But I guess there has to be some kind of combination. I mean, like there has to be some kind of connection with like, how he was always like he had a dog, and remember he said the dog raised
Yes,
him, and then
I
he kept
do.
saying like we got to time to feed the dog, and then this whole ship of dogs shows up, and she wants a dog. The daughter, who's grown up, wants a dog because like, can you imagine? So the only thing that really hit me was, and it would make a really interesting story all on its own, maybe if we could even like normalize it, is could you imagine what it would be like to be that girl, Willow?
Dude, that's another problem I have with
Like,
the movie.
what?
She wouldn't be that normal.
No.
She would not be that normal. She's like reading about what Earth was like. If I were him, I wouldn't even tell her Earth existed.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
And she's like, she talks about, I feel like she talks about some kind of animal or something. She's like describing something she read in like an
Right.
encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Like, can you, like, yeah, that I agree.
Yeah.
It should be its own movie.
Yeah.
So that you can get into the intricacies of it rather than shoehorning it in at the end.
Yeah, because that's a fascinating concept. I mean, this girl was born to die. I mean, I know we're all born to die, but like she had no future. She was born billions and billions of miles from Earth.
Yeah, like
she
even
was trapped on a ship. She
even
only
if-
knew one other person.
Yeah, I feel like even if you raise the kid in a nice way,
Yeah.
they would be really weird because they would only ever interact with you.
Yeah.
So
It's kind of interesting though. Now that I'm thinking about it,
like, why didn't
talking about
I,
like the dog correlation, like the whole idea, like raised by wolves,
yeah.
and like she was raised by, like he said he was raised by a dog, and like maybe it's like, like she was like raised by wolves, like
she was raised
like
just not the way people are.
right, yeah.
What happened to the woman? I forget. How did she die? The scientist.
Oh,
Did he kill her? I just don't remember.
Or did Andre 3000 kill her?
I don't remember. He didn't seem like a criminal at all. He was very...
Yeah, I know.
He was in touch with...
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
He was very much a family man. He talked about his family.
Yeah. It's like, why would you go to space?
How he was going to do that for his kids. And that was so disturbing, too. Yeah, but then remember, she took herself out the airlock. Like she knew she was going to die. So the
How?
doctor lady, someone attacked her. One of them
Maybe
attacked
one of the
her.
girls. I feel like the two.
She was wounded. She was mortally wounded.
Some of the actresses, some of the characters got characterization.
Yeah.
Like some of them didn't.
Yeah.
It was weird.
It was very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if I could recommend. I mean,
I would not recommend that movie.
Yeah. See, that's the thing is I wouldn't recommend it to anybody I know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I mean, if you're interested in sci-fi,
Yeah, if you're a ferocious consumer of all things science fiction, then
check it out because it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen The Lighthouse yet?
No, I haven't.
Dude.
Should I?
Well, now that you don't have to go to the theater and pay to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
was really excited about it when I saw trailers for it, and
well,
then
it is it ain't shit compared to The Witch.
Yeah, but
That's the only problem with it is that it's the follow up to one of the greatest modern
Yeah.
horror movies ever made.
yeah.
And listen to me say that I don't watch horror movies. How would I know that? It's just a really good movie.
Did you watch Hereditary?
No, I haven't watched Hereditary.
Okay,
yet.
then if you watch that movie, you'll change your mind.
Okay. But
It's
The
along the
Lighthouse-
same lines as The Witch.
Okay.
It has the same vibe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of Robert Pattinson.
Did you ever
is
watch
just-
Midsummer?
No.
No, that was a weird movie.
I'm not interested in that whole horror, alternative horror stuff. Modern A24 horror.
Okay, but what's
I
really
don't give a
no, but what's really weird is that's even though we think it's modern,
I also don't like cults in
it's
movies.
actually
I don't like that shit.
it's actually a throwback to all the surrealism.
Of what?
So you know how there was Dali is the pinnacle of surrealism and painting and art, but there was also surrealism in film.
Yeah, I think I missed all that, so I'm not going to know the references.
No. But what I'm saying is that all the stuff that we call new is actually not new at all.
Okay.
It's just interesting.
Yeah.
Because
what's surreal about it? Is it visually stunning,
who? What are we talking about?
Midsummer.
Oh yeah, no. I mean,
or is
no.
it just bright colors and a lot of the color white?
It's just totally whacked out.
Yeah, I don't like cult shit, man.
That's what's totally whacked out. The movie is completely whacked out.
I don't want to watch people in a cult
Yeah.
in any movie.
Not fun.
It's not interesting to me.
No.
So, because I'll just sit there going, "You're dumb.
Yeah.
Don't do that."
Leave.
Yeah.
How about leave?
Yeah.
Could we just leave?
I recently saw someone talking about, it was on YouTube or something, talking about the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And if I'm going to start watching horror movies, I'm starting there. I'm not starting with Midsummer.
Oh, yeah.
With the crown of flowers on
No. I'm not suggesting that you do. Hereditary, though, on the other hand, is incredibly good.
All you have to say is Toni Collette and I'll watch it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care that it's horror.
That movie is incredibly good on so many different levels. No, but that's even even The Witch, just leave. What are you guys doing? Leave.
They're Puritans.
Have you seen Hansel?
No.
Because
What's
that's
that?
another really along these same lines of Witch. It's
good
the
horror.
creepy one of the creepiest movies.
Hansel?
Yeah, it's the
Is there a creepy
idea
kid
is
in it?
no. There's a very very creepy woman.
Okay.
But it's the the folklore version of
Hansel and Gretel?
Hansel and Gretel, yeah. But it's like, it reminds me of like, it's like that same atmosphere as The Witch, where it's like that slow building craziness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right.
That was like a wild tangent, but yeah.
Well, that's just High Life is like, what even is that movie? It can make you think
Yeah.
about horror, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we should end it.
Yeah.
Next time, the next episode should be The Fountains of Paradise.
Nice.
So that's a good book. I remember it. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Okay. Thank you for joining us, and please join us next time. All right, Space Dreamers, that about wraps it up for today. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to my sister Amy for joining me today and listening to my mad ravings about how I don't particularly like this novel. I also have to give a big shout out to Quinlan Orleans Akins for performing my ads. Also, a huge shout out to Kevin Lesage for making all the music that you hear in the Space Dreamers, this episode and all episodes. Today, I had a very special guest voiceover artist doing the VOs that you heard in this episode. His name is Misha Krylov. Very talented. I met him on Clubhouse. If you're interested in getting Misha to do maybe your VOs for your podcast, you can hit him up. He's on Twitter. You can find him at MISCHAKRILOV. That's on Twitter. Next episode is going to be all about The Fountains of Paradise. It's a rather short episode because it's a pretty short and straightforward novel. It's a good novel. It's a pretty good episode. We also discuss a film. And then beyond The Fountains of Paradise, we have, of course, coming at you 2010 Odyssey 2, which I am currently reading. I am 50 pages in right now, and it's absolutely one of my favorite novels of all time. The whole 2001 saga, 2001, 2010, 2061, and 3001, some of my favorite books of all time. Pretty much the reason I'm doing this podcast, all about Arthur C. Clarke's bibliography. So join me next time, all about Fountains of Paradise, and the time after that, we're doing 2010 Odyssey 2, and the episode after that will be about the movie 2010, The Year We Make Contact, which is not a bad, I saw it a long time ago when I was in college. I believe I was disappointed because I was coming right off the heels of 2001, which is obviously an amazing classic. Yeah, we'll be talking about interesting stuff in the upcoming episodes, so please stick around, stay tuned for those. I do have 2 more voiceovers that Misha did for me that we didn't directly discuss in the episode, but I still wanted to reproduce them here, so they will be coming at you with some of that dope music that Kevin creates as soon as I'm done talking. So we'll fade out on a couple really nice passages from Imperial Earth, and then we'll fade out, and we'll see you next week. So thank you so much for joining me, and keep on dreaming.
Yet though it had shrunk in size, it had gained in impressiveness. Sirius had risen several degrees out of the planet's equatorial plane, and now at last he could see the rings and all their glory. Thin, concentric silver halos, they looked so artificial that it was almost impossible to believe that they were not the work of some cosmic craftsman whose raw materials were worlds. Although at first sight they appeared to be solid, when he looked more carefully, Duncan could see the planet glimmering through them, its yellow light contrasting strangely with their immaculate snowy whiteness. 100,000 kilometers below, the shadow of the rings lay in a dusky band along the equator. It could easily have been taken for an unusually dark cloud belt rather than something whose cause lay far out in space. Of course, one could always take refuge in the cold mathematics of reproduction. Old Mother Nature had not the slightest regard for human ethics or feelings. In the course of a lifetime, every man generated enough spermatozoa to populate the entire solar system, many times over, and all but 2 or 3 of that potential multitude were doomed. Had anyone ever gone mad by visualizing each ejaculation as 100 million murders? Quite possibly. No wonder that the adherents of some old religions had refused to look through the microscope.